then we continue with our guest speaker today, and I'm very pleased to announce Florian Röhrlein from TU Munich, and he's going to talk about robotics in the human brain project. And Florian is senior lecturer at TU Munich and also managing director of the Neurorobotics sub-project of the Human Brain Project flagship. And I guess probably most of you have heard about the Human Brain Project, so it's a highly interesting, but it's also a hugely controversial project. So we're very interested. Let's hear what can be learned about the human development from the Human Brain Project in robotics. So the floor is all yours.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for giving me the chance to present to you. Can you hear me? All good. So I'm here in the university hotel in Groningen, no, not in my office. And I would like to present to you the neurorobotics part of the Human Brain Project, and also because I will start with presenting first a bit about the Human Brain Project in general, because you might wonder what this flagship project has to do with robotics in the first place. And indeed, the name Human Brain Project has led to also to some misunderstandings, because people think that it is mostly about neuroscience, but we will see that this is definitely not the case, but it is an ICT project, so it's about information and communication technology. Okay, but maybe let me start with with a bit history of this flagship initiative. We started quite exactly 2 years ago, but of course the preparations started much earlier. So I'm involved in this HPP since 3.5 years or so. And you know, there was the idea for going for something big, having a big project with a long perspective. And then there was a call made. 6 projects were selected on a short list, and then 2 were selected. One is the Human Brain Project, and otherwise I would not sit here now. And the other one is graphene, which is on a very, very different topic. So I guess the HPP has been a lot in the press, also because of the money that will be spent to the project. And we always read this figure of 1 billion euro. This is not completely true, because it turns out that the European Commission will only pay half of it. So the 50% of this budget has to come from national funding agencies, etc. On the slide, there's still that EPF. It is led by EPFL in Lausanne, but a few months ago they moved to Geneva, to a very nice into a very nice building, and this project will maybe have a runtime of not only 10 years or 8 years from now on, but maybe it will run for 15, for 20 years, because there are plans by the European Commission to make to have the HPP part of their research infrastructure agenda. So there are plans to have something like a CERN for neuroscience. That, of course, is very interesting. Talking about CERN, it might be of interest also to hear that the CERN, you might know, also spends a lot of money. They spend roughly 1 billion, but not in 10 years, but almost yearly. So 1 billion euro is certainly a lot of money. It's great to be part of this project, but it's also interesting to put this figure into context of other big projects. All right, so the big goal, you might know this, of the HPP is to develop technology to unify our understanding of the human brain, and this is very important, to transfer this knowledge into products. Because it is not only about research and development, but it's a lot about innovation, because it's a project funded by the European Commission. And there are 3 big application scenarios that we have in this project. One is future neuroscience, Because if you really succeed in building these huge simulations of mouse and human brains, and on different granularity, of course, then this opens a new window into brain research. Yeah, so it does not replace other technologies, but it is an additional tool, simulation-based neuroscience. Then the second big field is future medicine, and it's clear that if we have these brain simulations running, then we can test new drugs. And this is a huge market because of all these people that suffer from dementia, Alzheimer's disease, etc. And thirdly, and this is the area that I guess we all are mostly interested in, is the field of future computing. And that is about transferring the insights from the neuroscience by taking models on different scales and see how we can transfer this into algorithms, not only for robots, for artificial cognitive systems, but also to think about completely new computing architectures. And so the neuromorphic engineering is the term here. Overall, the approach, the goal of the HPP is a bit similar to another data integration project, and that is the first globe that was called the Earth Apple, Erdapfel in German. That was Mr. Beheim many years ago. And as you can see on the left-hand side, in the 15th century, the globe looked quite differently. You can see there, so there are some parts of Spain and the UK, but then on the left-hand side, it turns to be thought to be a bit strange with a lot of islands. And now we have something like Google Earth. We do not have that many years from 1493 to a few years ago. We only have 10 years, but the idea is quite similar. So integrating all these neuroscience data that are out there, that have been generated, that have been collected in the past 20 years or so, and building models out of them, because all this knowledge is still a bit fragmented. The data comes with different formats. There are a lot of differences in methodology, and typically people publish, and that's it. So there's a lot still to be done with all these data. That is similar to this enterprise in coming up with the first globe. So the goal of the HPP is not to generate another huge set of neuroscience data, but instead to get all this information together, and therefore a strong emphasis in the project is on theory, on computing technology, as we will see in the next slides. So a number of papers in neuroscience have increased and are still increasing dramatically, so nobody can read all this. The goal of the Human project is quite different from another project that was launched by the Obama administration. Interesting, after the Human project has been made officially announced, and this North American project is about generating, in the first place, developing new technologies that will help to generate more neuroscience data. So a completely different approach, but the Human project will collaborate with this BRAIN initiative. But just to make this clear, Human Brain project is not about generating new neuroscience data. A bit. There are sub-projects that will, if it is strategically necessary to have some more data, then these sub-projects will do this. So this is sub-project 1 and 2, which is about mouse data and about human data. And this is an overview of all the sub-projects that we have in this Human Brain project. But you can easily see that very centrally there are these so-called platforms, or technology platforms, neuroinformatics, brain simulation, but also standard high-performance computing, medical informatics, neuromorphic computing, and I will talk about a few of them in a bit more detail at least, and then I will come to our sub-project, which is on neurorobotics. But you can already see, so there's there's not much neuroscience in this project. It's a lot about these platforms, and if you look at the people that are involved, they're physicists, computer scientists, engineers, etc. So we are leading this Neurorobotics platform in Munich, but of interest might also be one sub-project that led to, well, some irritation, and there was an open letter. I don't know if some of you have followed this, and this was because people did not agree on the research topics that we want to have in the HPP, especially in the systems and cognitive neuroscience sub-project, and therefore an open call was announced a few months ago, and now we have new projects that are about to start now. And interestingly, there are also colleagues in the field of robotics. For example, this project is 1 out of 4 that have been selected for getting into the Human Brain project. And as you can see from the name, so University of Sheffield, west of England, it will be very interesting for us from the neurorobotics field to collaborate with them. Then there's neuromorphic computing, which is a quite interesting approach. So not only having a look at the brain and try to figure out how we can turn computing strategies into algorithms, but also have a look at the morphology of the brain and come up with alternative approaches to the standard for normal computers. And one approach there to mention is the so-called Spinnaker system that is developed in Manchester, where we can connect a lot of these cores up to 1 million in order to simulate spiking neural networks in real time, and the complete system. The last figure I have heard was that we will be able to simulate a complete mouse brain with these Spinnaker boards. And they're so interesting because of their low power consumption. But we might come back to this later. We also have a sub-project on ethics and society, and this is quite important, of course. And we do have, you might know, we are in a quite different position than in the US, for example, where there is I would say, very little research in the field of cognitive system robotics without money from the military, and this is in stark contrast to what we have here in Europe, especially in the Human Brain project. We have a grant agreement that everybody must sign, and we have a statement about the civil research. So people have to sign that they will not take money, even if it is from the National Defense Agency. And so ethics and society, the consequences of all the systems that we will build in the course of this project is also very relevant for the field of robotics. In Berlin, I've seen there's a symposium on roboethics in a few days or so. So this is a topic where that needs to be discussed. So a lot of different sub-projects are involved with the common goal of getting to an integrated understanding across all these biological levels. So the Human Brain project is often associated mostly with this very detailed models, and that might be the reason for this might be that there's sometimes a confusion between Human Brain project and this Blue Brain project, which was indeed about having this very detailed modeling of the cortical column. But it is very clear that we need not only bottom-up approaches, but we have to combine this with top-down approaches, and we're interested in having models on various scales. Okay, so this is to summarize a bit. Of course, we have this separation into sub-projects, but this is just to be able to better deal with this many people that are involved in this huge project. But these sub-projects are tightly linked. So there's new science data that will help to build this model. There's human data. On the other hand side, we have computing platforms, not only neuromorphic computing, but also standard high-performance computing. We're making use of the biggest supercomputers that we have in Europe. And this is what we are very interested in silico behavior and cognition. So people should be in the position to go to our website, to use our platform in order to do in silico behavioral experiments. And I will come to this in more detail when I talk now about the Neurorobotics sub-project. All right, so what are the overarching goals of our sub-project? Well, you might know that there are several groups that are active in the field of brain-inspired robotics, but what is clearly missing is something like a theory of neurobotics, and we would like to make a substantial contribution to this. We will work with physical robots, but we will also work a lot with simulation. So simulated robots in simulated environments connected to simulated brains. That is also that is where most of our human resources go into. So at the moment, like 95% of our manpower goes into building the simulation platform. But this will change a bit in the future. We are currently taking the final steps in preparing our research agenda for the next 2 years, because we are now still in the ramp-up phase, as it is called, and then from April 1st onwards, we will enter the operational phase, and so the Neurorobotics sub-project will get about 7.6 million euros for the next 2 years. Okay, so Neurorobotics is a subfield of bionics, so you can see it as a subfield of neurobionics, or you can see it as a subfield of bio-inspired robotics, where we do not have a look at bio-inspired sensors, bio-inspired actuators, etc., but focus on the brain and try to see what we can learn from the insights we get from neuroscience. There are many good reasons to study the brain. Here are some of them listed. One I already mentioned, that the brain has a power consumption of roughly a light bulb, so about 20 watts, and that is of course in stark contrast to the power consumption that is needed to simulate only a part of the brain on standard supercomputers. But there are many other advantages, and I think I don't have to go into the details here. What you can hopefully see here rotating is the so-called Cortical Column, which is the major outcome of this Blue Brain project. It was simulated for many days on a very fast supercomputer, and is modeled to very fine details, so down to the spines, to molecules even. But this cortical column is so interesting for neuroscientists, but also for us, because many think that this is the basic computing unit. And if you're not familiar with this concept, if you look at the brain and you have this 6-layered cortical structure, and if you then get from the top from the surface downwards, you get to this unit that is called the cortical column, and it's very interesting, and that's also one of the differences, many differences between computers and brains. If you open up a computer, then you can identify different parts like coprocessor, bus, input-output devices, etc. But if you open up the scalp and look at the cortex, then it's interesting to see that it looks almost the same everywhere. And so it doesn't matter if a certain area is responsible for the processing of visual information, or it is about generating movements, or about planning, or emotional processing. You will always find this cortical column. There are variations. So in some areas, one area is a bit thicker than the other, but the overall wiring seems to be the same, and therefore many people are convinced this is extremely interesting to figure out what exactly this wiring is, and to make this and use this then also for technical applications. And we did this already as a very first step so-called ball balancer, where the simple task is to balance a ball. Two motors we had for this, and a dynamic vision sensor from Zurich, by the way. And we had this then connected in collaboration with several colleagues with a simplified model of this cortical column, which came out of this Blue Brain project. And we did a simulation on this, and this is our typical for our approach. We do both. We do simulations, but we also build physical demonstrators. And this demonstrator for this ball balancer can be seen on the next page. Here we go. And interesting to note also is that this simplified model of the cortical column was realized on this neuromorphic hardware. So we had neuromorphic hardware, we had this simplified brain models in this closed loop demonstrator with a bio-inspired vision sensor and with these two motors. But of course, this is only the beginning. If we talk about brain-inspired robots, at our chair we have quite some experience with so-called anthropomimetic robots. So here is another example of a small-scale project that we are running on a site where we realize simplified models of the cerebellum on the neuromorphic hardware that we get from our colleagues in Manchester, and that with these algorithms control this arm that you can see on the left-hand side in simulation, and also the physical demonstrator. So together with Wolf Pfeiffer's lab and several others, a series of these anthropomimetic robots have been developed in the last years, and it seems to be quite straightforward to connect those with these brain models that we get from colleagues in the Human Brain Project. And indeed, we will foster the collaboration with Raphael Hostetter, for example, from spring next year onwards. Okay, but as I said in the beginning, our main task is to deliver this so-called Neurorobotics Platform, which is a huge piece of software with a lot of the different modules. And I have a short video on this that I can show you in a moment, because this platform is released now. It will go public also in spring next year. So everybody is highly invited to use this platform then. And not only our platform will be released by then, but also the other 5 platforms. And the idea is that people can run in silico experiments. So for example, having a rodent put into a maze. The rodent has to do some tasks, some spatial navigation. So pretty much what people are doing since many years, and a Nobel Prize was awarded for this kind of research last year. And so the idea is to replicate the in vivo experiments now in silico. And for this, we need a lot of different modules. So we have many computer scientists that are programming all these different components. We need designers, because we want people to enable to use different robots, configure them in the simulation platform, etc. So we need a robot designer, we need an environment designer, we need an experiment designer, we need a lot of engines that help to run all these simulations on different supercomputers, and we need components to visualize them, either on your desktop at home, at your workplace, or a more immersive visualization, for example, in a kit. And this is now a video from the platform that I would like to start now. Oops. I need to get to this button here. So now it should work. So this is the website that you will see. You will not be aware of all this technology that is behind it, all these supercomputers where the different simulations will take place. What we have realized so far are that a couple of different robot models can be used, and we designed several so-called Breitenberg experiments. So, for example, you can change the color of the screen from blue to red, and then this robot moves toward the red display. It's in the beginning. It's in the very beginning. We have it released a few weeks ago, but I think you get a good idea about what this platform will be about, and you are, as I said, highly invited to test it in spring next year. Okay, so this is just one platform. There are other platforms, medical informatics, I haven't talked about that at all. There's neuroinformatics, there's neuromorphic computing, so people will also be able to access this neuromorphic hardware by just going to the website. And these platforms, these 6 platforms in the Human Brain Project are accessible via a unified portal, as it is called. So they're not separate platforms. There's one platform where you can access all the tools that are developed and will be developed in the Human Brain Project. Okay, so briefly, honestly, it's there are only a few minutes left. So we took the first steps in for realizing this idea of enabling people to run in silico experiments with rodents, for example. We started in modeling a mouse, which is more technical details are shown on the next slide. So we started it by simulating the passive body, so you can see the transformations of the mouse when it hits the surface. But then in the next step, we had a look at the tactile information that we can feed into, that we can connect to the body of the mouse. Different. I don't know if how much you are familiar with neuroscience. So different parts of the body are represented differently. So the nose is a lot of cortical tissue, a lot of neural tissue is spent for the nose, making the nose very sensitive. You might have seen this homunculus, which gives an idea about which areas of the body are represented to which extent, and then we put all these things together. So the simulated mouse body is simplified now, only simplified model of areas of the mouse brain. And as you can see, if the mouse is touched by the stick, then the corresponding brain regions start to fire. Okay, so I have to speed up a bit. Maybe I can skip this, because I would like to spend a few slides in the end now to make very clear, also because of this criticism that was mentioned in the beginning, I want to make very clear that this project is open. We are very welcoming everybody to collaborate with us. We are using, we try to use as many open source tools as possible, and develop them further, adapt them to our needs, program additional aspects, and give all this back again to the community, so it will be open source. we have a website where you can find a lot of more information. It's www.neurorobotics.net, where you find a lot of information. You can also contact me. We do run a journal. It's called Frontiers in Neurorobotics. It's the only journal that is specific to this field. And it's all open access, so you can read all articles that have been published in this journal. The articles are of the highest standard. Frontiers is now part of the Nature publishing group, which is of course great. And it's very interesting to see that the field of neurorobotics, or brain-based robots, if you want, is almost exploding at the moment. Okay, and our project is huge. It's a huge European project, but of course research does not stop at the borders of Europe, especially in the field of neurorobotics. Asia is quite interesting for us, and so we organized a workshop in April this year. We traveled to Tokyo and had a very interesting workshop there on neurorobotics. You will find more information on that also on our website. But we are also organizing workshops at IROS, for example. We had a workshop, we had plenary, so we're really trying to get in contact with as many people as possible and get them involved. Final slide, so to show you a bit of the organization structure within our sub-project. Alice Knoll and Marc-Oliver Gewaltig are the leaders of the sub-project. I'm responsible for the scientific coordination, but of course there are many, many others that are contributing to our work here. And with this, I would like to end. I think I'm exactly in time, but only two minutes over. But I'm happy to take questions if there are any.
Thank you for accepting the invitation. It was worth to listen to your talk. I have a question which is related to the topics of our lecture series. So, how you think that morphological computation is managed? So, affects the project. So, how the modeling of the brain is affected or might be affected by the concept of embodied AI and morphological computation. So the fact that some part of the computation is actually in the body structure and not the brain, which might have a disruptive impact on neuroscience, I think. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. That's a good question, and I mean it's clear that the focus of the project is clearly on the brain. It's clearly on the brain. But we are still in the process of convincing our colleagues, which are from completely different fields, that it is very important to also think more about the body and how the body influences what is processed in the brain. But the focus is on the brain, and we are the only sub-project that is concerned with bodies. Now the situation changes a bit because we have these colleagues in the cognition sub-project that are also coming with a lot of expertise in the field of brain-inspired robots. And this will change again then from April 1st onwards when we get into another phase. But we still have to convince some of the colleagues, as we did in the past, to convince them that it makes a lot of sense to not only have simulated robots, but also to really build robots. Yeah? And now this is another discussion that we are having with our colleagues, that we need to put more emphasis on modeling also the body.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So, because it's a big issue. So, if no, with 2α morphological computation is a real thing, and I think so, it's unlikely that it is not reflected in the brain structure of humans or any animal. No, I think you agree. Yeah. I don't know if there are other questions. Maybe Verena.
Sorry. Does anybody have a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, we have a question. So can you
continue to.
Oh, okay.
So I have a question about the computational power you needed for the simulation of the mouse, and of the computational power you needed for the 2D balancing example you showed. It was done on a supercomputer or just a little laptop?
Well, that was it was running on a supercomputer, but it only needed a very small fraction of that power. Because at the moment we are in the situation in the human brain project that we all start at the same time on the one hand side, and on the other hand side, we in the field of neurorobotics need the models, and the modelers need the neuroscience data, so we have to work with shortcuts in the beginning. And we're doing this by taking, on the one hand side, results from other projects like the Blue Brain project that is running since many years now, but also by taking simplified models. And for these, of course, we do not need a lot of computing power. But we will need this, and the high-performance computing is an extra sub-project. We will need this in the next years.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, can we simulate the cognitive system of our own AB to reproduce the wiggle dance on AB and interacting this with real on ABs?
That was a bit difficult to understand for me. Can you
Aspetti, non ho capito. Roberto.
Can we simulate the cognitive system of our own AB to reproduce the wiggle dance of on ABs?
So not at the moment. And what I maybe forgot also to stress is that in the HPP, in the Human Brain Project, the idea is not that the people that are in the project or all these many partners will do the bit systems, expert in understanding brain, etc. But instead, the idea is that the people that are in the Human Brain Project deliver the platform, will deliver the 6 platform, so that the scientific community can use that. So you should then be able to get to our platform and plug in your robot models or do in silico experiments. So it's not that we in the HPP will do all these fancy things, but the idea is that we will enable the scientific community to do simulation-based neuroscience.
Thank you.
I have another question. Do you think that certain things can only be found out on a specific neural level of abstraction? So, as I understood, you have different levels of abstraction to represent the neural system of the brain. And how do you decide on which level of abstraction you're working on?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think it is vital that we have these models on various scales, because I mean, for practical reasons, because I mean, especially we deal with robots, we do not want to have this very detailed models with vesicles and spines and molecules even, but also because from the perspective that maybe we do not understand unless we have abstracted away. So maybe it is necessary to build higher level models in order to get to an understanding about what the brain is doing. And also, and so I think one of the big research questions in the Human Brain Project is how to connect between these models on various scales. This is an open question, and this is what the work in one sub-project will be about. And we have to do this not only from bottom up, but also from top down. Yeah, that is also very clear. But coming back to your question, you can see this Neurorobotics platform as the test bed for this brain models, because this is the Robotics platform where we can then verify if these models are correct by looking at the behavior, and of course also by other means. Does this a bit answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. And I have another question. So I'm very interested in internal simulations of sensory motor skills. How could that be modeled within the architecture of the Human Brain Project?
What do you mean by architecture of the HPP?
I mean, you said you offer certain methods and tools that could be used for robotics experiments, and so we're interested in performing internal simulations of robot sensory motor skills, like grasping and so on. So this would then be the experiment designer that would be responsible for these sorts of experiments that others want to do with our platform. In general, we highly encourage people also to get in contact with us quite early, also already in the developing stage of this platform, to see what their needs are, which kind of experiments they would like to do with the platform. So there are many possibilities to contribute. It is not like a closed shop where some people are in the project and all the others are out. So we really like to get in contact with people. By the way, I will be in Berlin for this robot ethics symposium. So maybe this is a chance to meet with your group. Oh, excellent! Yeah, I will be there as well.
Great. It seems now that they are kicking me out of this room here in the hotel.
Okay. So I think if there are no more questions, let's thank our guest speaker again, everybody.
We're too late.